I'd prepared for every wedding disaster scenario, except my stepfather punching me in front of 146 guests. The cameras stopped, music died, and my mother, who'd begged me, "Don't make a scene," stood frozen like a statue. They thought I'd stay silent to save face. They forgot my job is dismantling lies with evidence. As blood trickled from my split lip onto my torn wedding dress, I locked eyes with the security camera and smiled. Roy Maddox had just given me everything I needed to destroy him, legally, financially, and publicly. My name is Lena Hart, and I've spent the last 5 years investigating risk and compliance violations at Northline Children's Health, a hospital network across Illinois. At 33, I thought I'd seen every type of manipulation and power play imaginable. Then I moved back to Ravensbrück after my divorce, closer to my mother Caroline, and met the man who'd make corporate fraudsters look like amateurs, my new stepfather, Roy Maddox. In this house, there's only one person who gets to be right, Roy announced during my first dinner at their colonial on Maple Street, his meaty fist wrapped around a beer bottle. And that's the man who pays the bills. My mother's fingers fluttered to her pearl necklace, a nervous habit she'd developed since marrying him 2 years ago. Roy's just traditional, she'd explained when I'd called her after their wedding, which I'd missed due to a work emergency. He takes care of everything. Traditional, that's what she called his need to control every conversation, every decision, every penny spent in their household. Roy owned Maddox and Sons Roofing, though the and Sons was purely aspirational since his own children hadn't spoken to him in years, a detail I'd discovered through a basic background check that also revealed 3 mechanics' liens and a suspended contractor's license in Indiana. "I hear you push papers at some hospital," Roy said that night, leaning back in his chair until it creaked. "Compliance, right? Making sure everyone follows the rules?" "Something like that," I replied, cutting my chicken with deliberate precision. "Must be nice, sitting in an air-conditioned office telling real workers what they can't do." He laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "Me? I build things, fix roofs that keep families dry. Real work." My mother rushed to fill the silence. "Lena's job is very important. She protects children." "From what? Paper cuts?" Roy's eyes never left mine. "Your daughter needs to learn that in the real world. Nobody cares about your little regulations and policies." I smiled, the kind of smile I'd perfected during depositions. "You're absolutely right, Roy. Nobody cares about regulations until they're facing federal investigations and bankruptcy." The room went arctic. Caroline's hand found Roy's arm, a practiced gesture of appeasement. "She didn't mean—" "I know exactly what she meant." Roy stood, his chair scraping against hardwood. "Little Miss College thinks she's better than everyone else." "Just better than people who bully their wives," I said quietly. The beer bottle slammed onto the table. Caroline flinched. "I didn't—" "This is my house," Roy said, voice low and dangerous. "You don't like how I run it. There's the door." I gathered my purse with practiced calm. "Mom, you have my number when you need it." "Lena, please," Caroline's voice cracked. "Can't we just have one nice family dinner?" Family, the word tasted bitter. This wasn't family. This was a hostage situation with a dining set. Over the next months, every interaction followed the same pattern. Roy would insult my work, my choices, my very existence. Caroline would make excuses. "He's stressed. Business is slow. You know how men are." And I would document everything in my phone. Dates, times, exact quotes. It was habit from my job. But something in my gut said I'd need this evidence someday. When Marcus proposed and I said yes, I naively hoped planning a wedding might bridge the divide. Instead, Roy saw it as another territory to conquer. "A hotel ballroom?" He scoffed when I showed them the venue. "Waste of money. My buddy owns a VFW hall." "The guest list needs to include my business associates," he declared, though I'd met exactly none of them. "I'll handle the money gifts," he announced. "Can't trust just anyone with cash envelopes." Each demand came with the same underlying threat. "Comply, or watch your mother suffer the consequences." Caroline would hover between us, her smile becoming more brittle with each passing day, dark circles deepening under her eyes despite her carefully applied concealer. "Just let him have this," she whispered during a wedding dress shopping trip he'd tried to veto. "It makes him feel included." "He's not entitled to control my wedding, Mom." "You don't understand." Her hands shook as she adjusted my veil. "When Roy feels disrespected, he—" She stopped, pressing her lips together. "He what?" "He gets difficult." Difficult, another euphemism. Like traditional, like stressed, like protective. My mother had become fluent in the language of excuses, each word a small betrayal of the woman who'd once taught me to never let anyone make me feel small. But I was done translating. If Roy wanted to play power games, he'd chosen the wrong opponent. I'd spent years learning how to document misconduct, build airtight cases, and use policies as weapons. He just didn't know it yet. 3 months before the wedding, I sat in the office of Willow Crest Hall with a contract worth $12,000 and a pen that felt heavier than it should. The venue coordinator, Janet, highlighted the standard clauses while I read every word twice. Occupational hazard of investigating contract fraud for a living. "We have comprehensive liability insurance," Janet explained, "and security cameras in all public areas. The footage is retained for 90 days. "I want that in writing," I said, adding an addendum. "And I need access rights to any footage involving incidents during my event." Janet raised an eyebrow but agreed. "Planning for problems?" "I investigate risk for a living. I've learned to hope for the best and document for the worst." That evening, I opened a separate wedding fund account at a credit union across town. Not the bank where Roy had connections. Every gift check would be deposited within 24 hours, creating a paper trail even Roy couldn't manipulate. "That's ridiculous," Marcus said when I explained my precautions. "It's just a wedding." "Nothing is just anything with Roy involved." I showed him the folder I'd started. Contracts, receipts, correspondence. "Trust me on this." Marcus, sweet conflict-averse Marcus, shook his head but didn't argue. He'd witnessed enough tense family dinners to know Roy was a problem, even if he didn't grasp the full scope yet. The real battle began when Roy discovered I'd hired my own security for the gift table. "What? You don't trust family?" He'd shown up at our apartment uninvited, using the spare key my mother had given him for emergencies. "I don't trust anyone with other people's money," I replied, not looking up from my laptop where I was confirming vendor contracts. "That's why I'm successful at my job." "Your job?" He spat the words like they tasted sour. "You know what your problem is? You think you're smarter than everyone else." "Not everyone, just you." His face went purple. "Listen here, you little—" "Roy." Marcus stepped between us, voice steady despite his white knuckles. "You need to leave." "Or what? You'll call the cops?" Roy laughed. "I'm family. We're just talking." I pulled out my phone, hit record. "Now we're documenting. Please continue threatening us in our home where you entered without permission." He left, but not before calling the venue behind my back. Janet forwarded me his email immediately. Roy had claimed to be the family coordinator and requested changes to the security protocols for convenience. "Dear Mr. Maddox," I wrote in my response, copying Janet and my attorney friend Nora. "Please be advised that any changes to the Hart-Hale wedding arrangements must be authorized in writing by the contracting parties. Any attempted unauthorized modifications may be considered tortious interference. I trust this clarifies the situation." Nora called me laughing. "Tortious interference? You've been reading my law journals." "I've been reading everything," I admitted. "Illinois statute on assault, battery, harassment. Did you know about the state's one-party consent recording law?" "Lena, you're starting to worry me. This is your wedding, not a court case." "With Roy, everything's a potential court case." My mother tried to mediate over lunch at a neutral restaurant. Her choice of words, like we were warring nations instead of family. "He just wants to help," Caroline pleaded, her salad untouched. Holding the gift box isn't a big deal. Mom, he called 3 of my vendors trying to change contracts. He told the caterer to add his business partners to the meal count without paying for them. He asked the DJ for the microphone schedule so he could approve the speeches. He's traditional. Stop. I pulled out my phone, showing her the screenshots. This is from your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Roy did their roof last year. They paid him $8,000 up front. The job's still not finished. Caroline's face went pale. That's different. That's business. This is fraud. Mom, and if he's willing to steal from neighbors, what do you think he'll do with envelopes full of cash meant for Marcus and me? She didn't answer, but her hands shook as she reached for her water glass. 2 weeks later, I had Marcus add a clause to our DJ contract. In case of any disruption involving aggressive behavior, they were authorized to cut the microphone and lighting immediately and call venue security. The photographer received similar instructions. Keep shooting no matter what happens, and back up all footage to the cloud immediately. You're paranoid, Marcus said gently. I'm prepared, I corrected, sealing another copy of documents in an envelope for Nora. There's a difference. The difference would matter more than either of us could have imagined. The rehearsal dinner should have been our warning siren. 24 hours before the wedding, at Portofino's downtown, Roy arrived 40 minutes late and 3 drinks deep. There's the blushing bride, he boomed, stumbling into his chair. The restaurant's other patrons turned to stare. Hope you're not expecting a big speech tomorrow. I don't perform for free. Marcus's parents exchanged glances. His mother, Patricia, a retired school principal, had that look I recognized from my compliance work. Someone cataloging inappropriate behavior for future reference. We're just happy everyone could make it, I said smoothly, though my phone was already recording in my purse. Roy flagged down the server, ordering a double whiskey. Make it top shelf. My new son-in-law's paying. He turned to Marcus. You are paying, right? Man's supposed to provide for his family. We're splitting everything equally, Marcus replied, his audio engineer's ear probably catching the slur in Roy's words that others might miss. Equally, Roy snorted. Modern bullshit. No wonder the divorce rate's so high. Women don't know their place anymore. Roy, Caroline whispered, her hand on his arm. He shook her off. What? I'm just being honest. Your daughter here thinks she's too good for everyone, too good to let family help with the wedding, too good to respect her mother's husband. Nora, sitting across from me, typed rapidly on her phone under the table. Later, she'd tell me she was documenting everything in real time, creating time-stamped notes that could serve as contemporaneous evidence if needed. Respect is earned, I said quietly. Roy's face darkened. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. You want to see what I've earned? He pulled out his phone, waving it around. 3 crews, 15 employees, built it all myself while you were playing detective at some hospital. Sit down, Caroline pleaded. Please. Don't tell me what to do. The restaurant went silent. A manager started walking our way. Marcus stood too, all 6 feet of usually passive peacemaker. You need to leave. Or what? Roy stepped closer to Marcus, chest puffed out despite being 4 inches shorter. You gonna throw me out? I'd like to see you try. Sound boy. No need, I said, holding up my phone. I've got everything I need for a disturbance of peace complaint. Illinois Statute 720 ILCS 5261, up to a year in jail. Roy laughed, but it was brittle. You wouldn't dare, not the day before your wedding. Try me. Patricia Hale stood, her teacher's authority filling the space. Mr. Maddox, I think it's best if you go home and sleep this off. We all want tomorrow to go smoothly. For a moment, Roy wavered, then he grabbed his jacket. This isn't over, he muttered, stumbling toward the exit. Caroline started to follow, but I caught her arm. Mom, stay, please. She sat back down, tears running through her foundation. He's just stressed about his business. Stop making excuses for him, I said, exhausted. Just stop. Later that night, Nora came to my hotel room with a folder and a grim expression. I need you to see something. She pulled out printed screenshots, text messages Roy had sent to vendors, emails to the venue, even a message to Marcus's employer suggesting he might want to know what kind of person Marcus was marrying. This is harassment, Nora said. We could file charges now. After the wedding. I decided. I won't let him ruin it completely. Lena, I'm worried about tomorrow. He was unhinged tonight. I showed her my preparation, emergency contact lists for security, safe words with the DJ and photographer, backup plans for every scenario. I've got venue security on alert, private security for the gift table, 6 different people ready to intervene if needed. And if he gets physical? Then I've got cameras from 3 angles and 146 witnesses. Nora shook her head. You know this isn't normal, right? Most brides worry about flowers and whether it'll rain. Most brides don't have Roy Maddox for a stepfather. She pulled out a business card. My colleague handles personal injury and assault cases, just in case. I took the card, hoping I wouldn't need it. What about Mom? If I file charges, that's her choice to make, Nora said firmly. You can't save someone who won't save themselves. At 2 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. You think you're so smart. Tomorrow I show everyone who you really are. I screenshotted it, forwarded it to Nora, saved it to 3 different clouds, and then did something I hadn't done since childhood. I prayed. Not for a perfect wedding, but for the strength to handle whatever Roy was planning. Because one thing was certain, he was planning something. And this time, I'd be ready. The moment arrived at 8:47 p.m., right after the father-daughter dance I'd shared with Marcus's father since my biological father had passed years ago. The DJ, following our timeline, announced, Now let's invite the mother of the bride, Caroline, for a special toast. My mother stood, elegant in her navy dress, reaching for the microphone. That's when Roy erupted from his seat like a linebacker breaking through defense. I've got something to say first, he slurred, ripping the microphone from her hands. The sound system squealed. Caroline stumbled backward, and I saw her mouth form the word please, though no sound came out. You all think you know Lena Hart? Roy's voice boomed through the speakers. Let me tell you about this ungrateful... Cut the mic, I said sharply to the DJ, who immediately complied with our predetermined signal. But Roy didn't need amplification in the suddenly silent ballroom. This woman, he pointed at me, weaving slightly, thinks she's better than everyone, won't let family help with the wedding, won't trust me with the gift money, treating me like some kind of criminal in front of everyone. Marcus stepped forward. Roy, you need to... Don't tell me what I need. Roy charged toward the gift table where 2 envelopes had already been placed. This is family money. I'm family. I should be handling this. Security moved to intercept him, but he spun around, and that's when he saw me standing between him and the gifts. Move, he growled. No, how? The slap came faster than I expected. Not a slap, actually, but a full closed fist punch that connected with my cheekbone. The impact sent me sprawling backward, my dress catching on a chair and ripping as I fell. I heard the collective gasp of 146 guests, the crash of a champagne glass, someone screaming, maybe my mother, maybe Marcus's sister. But even as I fell, my eyes found the venue's security camera mounted in the corner, its red light steady. Then the photographer, still shooting as instructed, the DJ's phone, propped up and live streaming to the cloud as we'd arranged as a backup recording of the music. Blood filled my mouth from where my teeth had cut my lip. My cheek throbbed, already swelling, but I smiled. Not at Roy, but at camera number 2. The one I knew was capturing everything in high definition. Marcus was there in seconds, helping me up while his groomsmen formed a wall between us and Roy. Venue security had Roy's arms pinned, but he was still shouting. She deserved it. You all saw. She's been disrespecting me for months, in my own house, at my table. Call 911, Patricia Hale commanded someone. her principal voice cutting through chaos. "No!" Caroline's shriek pierced the air. "Don't call the police. We can handle this as a family. Please, Lena, don't ruin everything." Ruin everything. My mother thought I was the one ruining things while blood dripped onto my wedding dress. "Ma'am, we're required to report any assault on the premises," the head of security informed her, already on his radio. "Police are en route." Roy tried to wrench free. "You're all witnesses. She provoked me. She's been harassing me for months with her lawyers and threats." Nora appeared at my elbow with a handful of napkins for my lip and her phone already recording. "Don't say anything," she whispered. "Let him keep talking." And he did. For the 7 minutes before police arrived, Roy created the most comprehensive confession I could have asked for. He admitted to trying to control the wedding funds. He admitted to calling vendors behind my back. He admitted to sending threatening texts. He even admitted to drinking since noon because of what she put me through. The officers separated us immediately. One took my statement while a paramedic checked my face. Contusion, split lip, possible mild concussion. They photographed everything. My injuries, the torn dress, the blood spatter on the dance floor. "Do you want to press charges?" Officer Martinez asked. I looked at my mother, standing next to Roy as he was handcuffed, her perfect makeup destroyed by tears. She was still, even now, positioning herself beside him instead of me. "Yes," I said clearly. "I absolutely want to press charges." "Lena, no." Caroline rushed toward me, but Patricia Hale intercepted her. "Your daughter was just assaulted at her own wedding," Patricia said, her voice steel. "And you're worried about him?" The venue coordinator appeared with a tablet. "Miss Hart, I have the security footage ready for the officers. 3 angles, all time-stamped." The DJ approached next. "I've got the whole thing on live stream, already backed up to 3 clouds and sent to your attorney." The photographer simply nodded at me and tapped his camera. Still shooting, still documenting. As they led Roy out in handcuffs, he turned back one more time. "This isn't over." "You're right," I called back, Nora's hand steadying me. "It's just beginning." The ballroom stood frozen, guests unsure whether to leave or stay. I grabbed the microphone with my good hand, tasting blood, but keeping my voice steady. "Well, that wasn't in the wedding program," I said. A nervous laugh rippled through the crowd. "But if everyone could stay just a few more minutes, I need witness statements for the police report. And then—" I looked at Marcus, who nodded. "Then we're going to cut this cake and dance because I'll be damned if Roy Maddox ruins anything else tonight." The room erupted in applause, but I wasn't done, not even close. The emergency room released me at 1 a.m. with a diagnosis of facial contusion, minor laceration, and instructions to follow up if I experienced any vision problems. Marcus drove while I held an ice pack to my face and made lists on my phone with my free hand. "Can't this wait until tomorrow?" he asked gently. "Tomorrow he posts bail. I need everything ready before then." By 3 a.m., I'd transformed our honeymoon suite into a war room. 3 laptops open, documents spreading across the king-sized bed, my wedding dress crumpled in the corner like evidence at a crime scene, which, technically, it was. First priority, securing the footage. Janet from Willowcrest had sent 3 files, each from different angles. The clearest showed Roy's fist connecting with my face in high definition. I uploaded copies to 5 different cloud services, emailed them to Nora, and saved them on 2 external drives. The DJ's live stream was even better. It caught audio Roy's threat before the punch and his confession after. The photographer, bless him, had captured a perfect sequence. Roy charging forward, his fist raised, the moment of impact, me falling, blood on white satin. He'd sent 47 high-resolution images within an hour of the incident. "This is evidence gold," Nora said when I called her at dawn. "But we need more than just assault charges if you really want to protect yourself." Already on it. I pulled up the Illinois Secretary of State Business Database, Maddox & Sons Roofing, incorporated 5 years ago. One look at the public filings showed discrepancies, addresses that didn't match, registration fees paid late, and a lapsed surety bond. Next, the Better Business Bureau. 17 complaints in 3 years, most unresolved. Pattern of behavior: taking deposits, starting work, then abandoning jobs when customers complained about shoddy work. The Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation site revealed his roofing contractor license had restrictions from a previous violation in 2019. He wasn't supposed to take deposits over $1,000, yet misses. Patterson had paid him $8,000 up front. "Marcus, I need you to search social media," I said, waking him from his doze on the couch. Screenshots of everything Roy's posted in the last year. While he worked, I filed the online incident report with the venue's insurance company, attaching all documentation. Then I submitted a formal complaint to the Illinois Attorney General's Consumer Fraud Division about Maddox and Sons, including affidavits from 3 neighbors who'd been scammed. By 8 a.m., I had a folder 2 inches thick. "You haven't slept," Marcus observed, bringing coffee. "I'll sleep when he can't hurt anyone else." Nora arrived at 9 with reinforcements. Her colleague who handled personal injury cases and, surprisingly, a forensic accountant. "If we're doing this, we're doing it right," she explained. "Tom here can trace financial fraud better than the FBI." Tom whistled as he reviewed my research. "This guy's been running a classic contractor scam. Take deposits, claim material delays, move money between accounts, never finish jobs. I can have a full financial profile by tomorrow." "What about the assault?" I asked. "Clear-cut case," the personal injury lawyer said. "With this evidence, we're looking at criminal battery charges, plus a civil suit for damages, medical bills, emotional distress, and here's the interesting part: loss of consortium." "Loss of what?" "Your wedding night and honeymoon were disrupted due to his actions. That's compensable damage to your marriage relationship." I like the sound of that. My phone buzzed. "Caroline, he's out on bail. Please don't do this. Think of the family." I responded, "He should have thought of family before he punched me at my wedding." Then I called Officer Martinez. "I want to add charges: harassment, criminal threatening, and violation of Illinois Order of Protection Act. I want an emergency restraining order." "Based on?" I forwarded him the threatening texts, the emails to vendors, the video of the rehearsal dinner confrontation. Pattern of escalating aggressive behavior culminating in physical assault. "I'll have the paperwork ready this afternoon." Nora was already drafting the civil suit. Assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and this is my favorite part, tortious interference with business relations. "How's that work?" "He tried to interfere with your wedding vendor contracts. That's actionable." By noon, I'd also contacted the Illinois Department of Labor about Maddox and Sons suspiciously missing workers' compensation insurance and OSHA about 3 safety violations I'd noticed in his truck's equipment during a photo from the rehearsal dinner. "You're terrifying when you're focused," Marcus said admiringly. "I investigate fraud for a living. He just became my most personal case." Tom looked up from his laptop. "Found something interesting. Roy's been depositing large cash amounts weekly, but declaring much lower income on his business filings. Classic tax evasion markers." "Add the IRS to our contact list." I said. "This is scorched earth," Nora warned. "Once we file all this, there's no going back." I touched my swollen cheek, thought of my mother standing beside him while I bled, remembered every insult and threat over the past year. "Good. I want him to understand what it feels like when someone with actual power decides to ruin your life, except I'm doing it legally." "What about your mom?" Marcus asked quietly. I pulled up one last document, a victim services pamphlet about domestic violence, resources for leaving abusive relationships, and a prepaid cell phone I'd bought that morning. I'll give her options. What she does with them is her choice. The first domino fell on Tuesday. Roy received the civil suit papers at his business address. I'd paid extra for a process server to deliver them during his morning coffee with potential clients at the Ravensbrook Diner. Public humiliation was just the garnish on a legal sandwich I'd been assembling for 72 hours straight. $27,000? Roy's voice was audible from my car across the street where I sat with Nora, perfectly legally, watching through binoculars. For what? The process server, a retired cop who enjoyed his job too much, spoke loudly enough for the whole diner to hear. Assault, battery, emotional distress, and punitive damages. Sir, you're also being notified of an active restraining order. You cannot come within 500 feet of Mrs. Lena Hart Hale. By noon, I'd sent formal complaints to every agency that touched Roy's business. The Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation received 40 pages documenting his violation of deposit restrictions. The Department of Labor got timesheets showing workers paid cash under the table, courtesy of a whistleblower who'd contacted me after seeing the wedding assault on someone's social media. "You're not playing around," Tom said, reviewing my spreadsheet of actions taken. "This is systematic destruction." He systematically destroyed my wedding. Seems fair. The Better Business Bureau updated their page within hours. Maddox & Sons now showed an F rating with a consumer alert. I'd provided them with 17 signed affidavits from scammed customers, complete with contracts, canceled checks, and photos of unfinished work. Wednesday brought the insurance revelation. Roy's general liability insurance had already lapsed for non-payment, but he'd been telling customers he was fully bonded. That's fraud. And State Farm's investigative unit was very interested in my documentation. His bond company just called. Nora informed me Thursday morning. They're pulling his surety bond and demanding immediate repayment of 3 claims they'd covered last year. The local newspaper picked up the story by Friday. Not sensationalized, just facts pulled from public court records. Local contractor faces assault charges following wedding incident. Multiple agencies investigating business practices. I didn't contact the reporter. I didn't have to. Court documents are public record, and journalists know how to search databases. The article included Roy's mugshot, the case numbers for all active complaints, and a helpful note that customers with unfinished work should contact the Attorney General's office. Marcus watched me work with a mixture of awe and concern. When do you stop? When he can't hurt anyone else. The contractor's licensing board scheduled an emergency hearing after receiving my complaint with 200 pages of evidence. 7 homeowners showed up to testify about deposits taken and work abandoned. Mrs. Patterson brought photos of her roof, tarps flapping after 8 months of waiting for materials. Roy's lawyer, a sweating man in an ill-fitting suit, tried to argue this was all retaliation for a family disagreement. "A family disagreement?" the board chair asked, looking at the wedding photos. "He punched his stepdaughter at her wedding. That's assault, not a disagreement." License suspended pending investigation. Without a license, Roy couldn't legally complete any contracts or take new jobs. His income stream just stopped. But the real blow came from the IRS. Tom's forensic accounting had revealed discrepancies between reported income and bank deposits, totaling $240,000 over 3 years. The IRS doesn't play games with tax evasion. They froze his accounts pending investigation. He can't pay his lawyers now, Nora noted with satisfaction. Public defender for the criminal case, and he'll have to represent himself in civil court. Saturday afternoon, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. "You think you've won?" Roy's voice slurred. Drinking again. "You've destroyed everything. My business, my reputation." I forwarded the recording to Officer Martinez. Violation of the restraining order, even by phone, meant immediate arrest. They picked him up at a bar that evening. This time, bail was revoked. The neighborhood HOA president called me Sunday. "We're terminating Maddox & Sons' contract for common area maintenance. We can't have someone with pending assault charges and fraud investigations representing our community." Each action was legal, by the book, documented and justified. I wasn't destroying Roy. I was simply revealing what he'd always been, pulling back the curtain on years of fraud, abuse, and intimidation. The EPA called. Tom said Monday morning, Those OSHA violations you reported? They found he'd been dumping old roofing materials illegally, federal charges likely. My phone buzzed with a text from Caroline. "You've ruined him." I responded, "He ruined himself. I just documented it." The Illinois Attorney General's office announced Tuesday they were pursuing criminal fraud charges based on the pattern of contractor scams. With Roy in jail awaiting trial for assault, he couldn't even coordinate a defense. By Wednesday, 2 weeks after my wedding, Maddox and Sons Roofing existed only as a cautionary tale. The business phone was disconnected. The website showed account suspended. The physical office, a rented space in a strip mall, had an eviction notice for non-payment. "You know what the beautiful part is?" I told Marcus as we looked at our wedding photos, the ones before Roy's explosion. "Every single thing I did was legal, every complaint justified, every piece of evidence real. I didn't have to lie, cheat, or throw a single punch. The system worked exactly as designed. It just needed someone who knew how to use it." "Remind me never to piss you off," he said, kissing my forehead. "Just don't assault me at our anniversary party and we'll be fine." The final tally: 1 suspended contractor's license, 3 pending criminal cases, 1 civil suit, 4 federal investigations, and approximately 24 former customers now pursuing their own claims. Roy wanted to show everyone who I really was. He succeeded. I'm someone who documents everything and knows how to use it. Caroline stood at my apartment door 3 weeks after the wedding, holding a banker's box and looking like she'd aged 5 years. Her designer purse was gone, replaced by a practical tote. The pearls were missing too. "May I come in?" I stepped aside. Marcus diplomatically disappeared into his studio, but I knew he'd be listening, ready to intervene if needed. She set the box on my dining table, the same table where Roy had threatened us weeks earlier. Inside were wedding cards, some still unopened, and an envelope thick with cash. "The gift money," she said quietly. "I took it from Roy's truck before the police impounded it. It's all there. $3,400. I didn't touch it." "Why now?" "Because you were right." She pulled out a chair, sitting heavily. "About everything." I sat across from her. The evidence of my campaign still spread across the table. Court documents, investigation notices, the newspaper article with Roy's mugshot. "Do you know what he said when I visited him in jail?" Caroline's voice was hollow. "He said this was my fault, that I raised a vindictive bitch who destroyed his life. Then he gave me a list of things to sell to pay for his lawyer." "Are you going to?" "I already did." She laughed bitterly. "Sold my jewelry, my car, emptied my retirement account, spent $30,000 on his defense lawyer, and yesterday, that lawyer dropped him because Roy threatened him too." I pushed a glass of water across the table. "Mom, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do." She pulled out a manila folder. "This morning, I went to the courthouse, found out some interesting things about my husband." She spread papers across the table. Marriage certificates, divorce decrees, restraining orders. 4 previous wives, she said. 3 restraining orders, 2 documented hospitalizations, all for domestic violence. The last wife? She's 28 now, in witness protection because he tried to burn down her apartment when she left him. My stomach clenched. "Mom." "I'm wife number 5, the only one who stayed more than 3 years. Tears ran down her face, but her voice stayed steady. "You know what the detective told me? I'm lucky. The violence always escalates after year 3, always." I reached for her hand. She pulled back. "Don't. I don't deserve comfort. I stood there while he hit you, at your wedding. I watched my daughter bleed and told her not to make a scene." "You were scared." "I was a coward." She stood, pacing to the window. "Do you know what I told myself? That if I just loved him enough, if I just didn't trigger his temper, if I just kept the peace, God, I became my mother, exactly what I swore I'd never do." I remembered my grandmother, always smiling, always apologizing for my grandfather's moods. History repeating in designer clothing instead of house dresses. Caroline turned back to me, pulling out another document. I filed for divorce this morning. Emergency order. I also gave a statement to the prosecutor about Roy's financial fraud. Turns out I know where he keeps his real books. Mom, that could be dangerous. He's in jail for the next 6 months minimum. His assets are frozen. His business is dead. What's he going to do? Be angry? She laughed harshly. He's been angry our entire marriage. At least now I don't have to pretend it's my fault. She pulled out a small recorder, setting it on the table. 5 years of recordings, every threat, every insult, every time he broke something to make a point. I thought I was keeping them for, evidence that I wasn't crazy, that it was really happening. Why didn't you ever? Because I was ashamed, because I thought I could fix him, because I believed him when he said no one would believe me. The desperate divorcee who trapped a successful businessman. She met my eyes. Because I was a fool who chose him over my own daughter. I stood, moving toward her. Mom, I have 2 options for you, she said, stopping me with a raised hand. She placed 2 documents on the table. The first was a settlement agreement. Roy would plead guilty to assault, serve his time, pay restitution, and accept a permanent restraining order. He'd also sign over any claim to marital assets in the divorce. The second was harder to read, a full witness statement detailing 5 years of domestic abuse, financial fraud, and escalating violence. Every incident documented, dated, supported by her recordings. If you want to proceed with the full prosecution, I'll testify. She said, everything, publicly, or if you want this to end, he'll take the plea deal. His lawyer, the public defender, says Roy will sign rather than face trial with me as a witness. What do you want? I asked. I want my daughter back. I want to deserve forgiveness, even though I know I don't. I want to wake up without being afraid. And I want Roy to never hurt another woman again. Marcus emerged from his studio, having heard enough. The plea deal includes registering as a violent offender? Caroline nodded. An automatic violation if he comes within 1,000 feet of any of us. Take the deal. I said, but I keep the civil suit active. He pays every penny of damages. He doesn't have any money left. Then he can pay installments for the rest of his life. Every month, he'll remember what he did. Caroline pulled out one last item, the prepaid phone I'd bought her. I've been carrying this, reading the resources you included. I have an appointment with a therapist tomorrow, one who specializes in domestic abuse survivors. You're a survivor now, I said, not a victim. Not yet, but I'm trying. She stood to leave, then turned back. Lena, that thing he said at dinner months ago, about only one person being right in his house, he was wrong. In families. In real families. Everyone gets to be right sometimes. Everyone gets to be heard. Yeah, Mom, they do. She left the box of money and evidence on my table. Marcus and I stood at the window, watching her drive away in her beat-up Honda, the only car she could afford after selling her Lexus for Roy's defense. Think she'll be okay? Marcus asked. She's got my stubbornness and apparently her own collection of evidence. She'll be more than okay. My phone buzzed. A text from Caroline. Your wedding was beautiful, until he ruined it. Want to help me plan my divorce party? For the first time in 3 weeks, I genuinely smiled. The courthouse mediation room smelled like old coffee and defeat. Roy sat across from me, orange jumpsuit replacing his contractor's swagger, wrists shackled to a belly chain. 6 months in county jail had deflated him. The man who'd terrorized my mother's home looked smaller, grayer, beaten. His public defender, a tired woman named Janet, pushed papers across the table. Mr. Maddox has agreed to all terms. Nora sat beside me, immaculate in her power suit, radiating the kind of authority that comes from knowing you've already won. Let's review the terms for the record. Guilty plea to assault in the 2nd degree. Janet read, 18 months incarceration, credit for time served, 3 years probation, mandatory anger management, permanent restraining order protecting Lena Hart Hale, Marcus Hale, and Caroline Peters, formerly Caroline Maddox. My mother had already reclaimed her maiden name. The divorce had been finalized in record time. Roy didn't contest it, couldn't afford to fight it, and Caroline's evidence made any defense impossible. Financial restitution. Nora continued. $27,000 in damages, paid in monthly installments of $500 for 54 months upon release. Failure to pay results in automatic violation of probation. Roy's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. What could he say? Maddox and Sons Roofing was dead. His contractor's license permanently revoked. The IRS had liens on everything he'd ever owned. 3 federal agencies were still investigating him. 42 customers had filed civil suits. The apology, Nora said, sliding a typed page forward. To be read aloud, here, now, and signed for the court record. This was my one non-negotiable demand, not the money. That was just numbers. But the apology, the admission, the words he'd have to speak aloud. Roy's hands shook as he picked up the paper. His voice came out rusty, like he'd been screaming or silent for too long. I, Roy Eugene Maddox, acknowledge that on September 15th, I physically assaulted my stepdaughter, Lena Hart, at her wedding. This assault was unprovoked, unjustified, and criminal. I take full responsibility for my actions and the harm they caused. He paused, swallowing hard. The next part was harder for him than the jail time. I apologize to Lena Hart Hale for the physical pain, emotional trauma, and disruption to her wedding celebration. I apologize to Marcus Hale for attacking his wife on what should have been a joyful day. I apologize to Caroline Peters for my pattern of controlling, abusive behavior during our marriage. His voice cracked on Caroline's name. She wasn't here, choosing to sign her portions separately, but her presence haunted the room through the evidence she'd provided. I acknowledge that my business practices at Maddox and Sons Roofing were fraudulent and harmful to the community. I accept all consequences of my actions and commit to rehabilitation through court-mandated programs. He set the paper down, signature hand trembling as he signed. The sound of pen on paper was the sound of complete capitulation. One more thing, I said, speaking directly to him for the first time. The wedding gifts you tried to control? Every penny went to the domestic violence shelter where Mom stayed after she left you. They'll use it to help other women escape men like you. Roy's face went purple, that familiar rage flashing in his eyes. For a second, the old Roy was there, the one who'd terrorized Sunday dinners, who'd believed his fists gave him authority. Then Janet touched his arm, reminding him where he was. Who had the power now? The fight drained out of him like air from a punctured tire. We're done here, Nora announced, gathering our copies. Mister, Maddox will be transported back to correctional. His probation officer will coordinate the payments upon release. As we stood to leave, Roy spoke one last time, his voice barely a whisper. You destroyed everything. I turned back, meeting his eyes with the same steady gaze I'd perfected during depositions. No, Roy, you destroyed everything. I just documented it. Outside the courthouse, Marcus waited with champagne, the bottle we'd saved from our wedding, unopened because the night had ended in an emergency room instead of a honeymoon suite. How do you feel? He asked, pulling me close. Free, I said, and meant it. Finally free. Nora popped the champagne right there on the courthouse steps, not caring about the disapproving looks from passing lawyers. To justice served cold, documented thoroughly, and completely legal. We toasted as the September sun broke through the clouds, the same sun that had shone on my wedding day 6 months earlier. So much had changed. The dress was evidence in storage. The venue had offered us a free anniversary party out of sympathy. The photos before the incident showed a different version of us, unmarked, unaware of what was coming. But Marcus and I were stronger. My mother was in therapy, living in a small apartment, rebuilding her life one careful day at a time. She'd started volunteering at the same shelter where she'd stayed, turning her shame into purpose. You know what the best revenge really is? Marcus said as we walked to our car.
What?
Living well, being happy, not letting him take any more from us than he already has. He was right. Roy would serve his time, pay his restitution, and fade into the kind of cautionary tale that people whispered about at contractors' conventions. But we would build our life, our family, our future, everything he'd tried to destroy and failed. My phone buzzed with a text from Caroline. Saw the court records updated online. Proud of you. Dinner Sunday. I'm cooking. My kitchen. My rules. Everyone gets to speak. I showed Marcus the message. He smiled. Tell her yes. Tell her we'll bring dessert. As we drove away from the courthouse, I thought about the wedding vows we'd barely managed to exchange before Roy's explosion, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. We'd already survived the worst, on what should have been our best day. Everything else would be easy by comparison. Hey, Marcus said, taking my hand at a red light. Want to get married again, just us, a judge, no family drama? We're already married. I laughed. I know, but I want to marry you on a day that doesn't end with assault charges. I squeezed his hand. Let me check my schedule. I've got depositions all next week, but I'm pretty sure I can pencil you in. Pencil me in, your husband? Fine pen, permanent ink. We were laughing as we drove home. The September afternoon golden with possibility. Behind us, the courthouse held our signed agreements, our documented victory. Ahead of us, life waited. Complicated. Messy. But ours. Roy had been wrong about one thing above all. In my house, in my life, in my story. I was the one who got to be right, not through force or fear, but through truth, evidence, and the kind of justice that comes with receipts. The man who'd beaten me at my own wedding had lost everything, and I'd won by doing everything right. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to hear what you think.